This is a conventional deadlift. There are so many different variations of the deadlift that I love to include in all of my programming from time to time. But once you understand the fundamentals of the conventional deadlift, all of the variations are quite easy. So we're going to go into depth, starting with the conventional deadlift. Dinah's going to walk up to the bar. I like to stand with the shins about an inch away from the barbell, but objectively, what we're looking for is the barbell going in line with the middle of her foot. When I say the middle of the foot, don't measure from the shin to the front of the foot. Measure from the side, from the back of the heel to the front of the foot. Dinah's stance is going to be unique to her. The stance of the deadlift, the way that I like to teach it, is to consider what your most powerful jump stance would be. So if you look at a sport where they like to jump a lot, consider a sport like basketball. If you look at how they like to stand when they're jumping for a slam dunk, they're not standing with a really wide stance. It's actually quite close. And that's because it's the stance where you're able to produce the most power from. Now that's going to change from lifter to lifter, and it depends on a number of things, such as hip structure, but also leg mass. The interesting thing is, we've got some of the best deadlifters in the world that are quite big, and they stand with a very wide stance. So a lot of people like to emulate that technique and consider that a 501 kilogram deadlift was performed by Hafthor Bjornsson, and he stood with a very wide stance, so that could be a good idea for me to stand in that stance. But actually, that guy's 205 kilograms and 205 centimeters. So just because he's standing with that stance doesn't mean it's good for everyone. Dinah's about 50 kilograms and about 5'2". So her stance is going to be significantly closer than that. The next thing that we need to consider with the deadlift stance, with the conventional deadlift stance, is that the stance must be on the inside of our arms. Now, what's the most efficient position for the arms to be? And that is for the arms to be straight down. But let's have a look at the proportions of someone like Diana, who is a girl and has very feminine proportions, compared to someone like me who's standing behind her for a reason. I'm a male and I've got more masculine proportions. And if you look at how broad my shoulders are compared to hers, mine are a lot wider. But if you look at her hips compared to mine, her hips aren't really different to mine. So factoring that in, for me, it's very comfortable for me to have my arms straight down and my feet to fall on the inside of that. But because Diana has more feminine proportions, it might be a little bit strange for her to have her arms straight down and her legs on the inside of that. Her hips are proportionately a little bit wider than her grip. So what we need to consider is the hips must take priority. Don't go and stand with a stance that's so close just because you heard Sebastian on Strength System online certification telling you that arms straight down is the most efficient position. Now factoring all of this in, Diana's going to grab the bar on the outside of her legs, giving herself enough room to be able to push her knees very gently outwards against the inside of her locked elbows. Activating her lats by pulling her armpits towards her pelvis. Sitting into position to activate leg drive, reaching the crown of her head towards the ceiling, take the slack out of the bar, elongate her spine, pushing the world away. Bum down, knees out, armpits to pelvis, head to ceiling, push the world away. That is a conventional deadlift. Now let's add a little bit of weight. That's nice and easy for Diana. Same principle applies for every exercise that we do. You need to earn the right to add weight to the bar. 40 kilograms for Diana is very easy. Let's go to 60 kilograms. Now we've got 60 kilograms on the bar. Once again, Diana is definitely strong enough to lift this without a belt, but we know we like to include a belt on the later sets. We like to introduce the belt early to get used to the way that her core is going to contract with the belt. Okay, 60 kilograms on the bar. Same cues. Diana walks up to the bar so that her shins are about an inch away, standing in her comfortable stance, which is relatively close, factoring in that we want her arms to be as close to straight down as possible. Let's show you why grabbing the bar with the arms straight down is the most efficient position, by using an exaggerated analogy of a snatch grip, which is a very wide grip. The idea of a snatch grip means she's going to increase the range of motion, making it a lot more difficult, which is a great variation of the deadlift, but for an efficient conventional deadlift, it's not very wise to use a wider grip unnecessarily. Now Diana's going to grab the bar in her preferred grip, which is as close to straight down as possible, factoring in her hips take priority. Because there's 60 kilos on the bar, she's using a mixed grip, sitting into position, pushing her knees very slightly outwards against the inside of her locked elbows, pulling her armpits towards her pelvis to activate her lats, reaching the crown of her head to the ceiling and pushing the world away. Knees locked out, hips pushed through. Bum down, knees out, armpits to pelvis, crown of the head to the ceiling, push the world away. One more rep. Bum down, knees out, shoulder blades down, head to the ceiling, knees locked out, hips pushed through. Once again, that was very easy. She's earned the right to add some weight to the bar. Let's go to 80 kilograms. Okay, we've got 80 kilograms on the bar. This is still another warm-up rep, but we're gonna go through a few of the things that we're focusing on. The deadlift is a concentric focus exercise. Unlike an exercise like a squat or a bench press, where we're starting with the eccentric portion, which gives us a lot of time to focus on where that bar is going to be aligned before we focus on the concentric portion, the deadlift starts from a standstill with the concentric phase. So we don't have an eccentric portion to get our bodies tight and get our bar position in line for the perfect concentric. So it is a common error for people to be a little bit loose from the start position of the deadlift. So an important cue to teach people is to take the slack out of the bar. And I'm going to show you how to do that. One of the first things that I like to teach people with a deadlift is to listen to this sound. The first thing that I teach people to do to take the slack out of the bar is to take that noise out of the bar so there's no noise when they're picking it up. When someone's not taking the slack out of the bar, you hear it. And that's an indication that they haven't taken the slack out of the bar. But that's not the only way that's going to tell you that you've taken the slack out of the bar correctly. So I'm going to give you a few of the points that we teach to ensure that you are taking the slack out of the bar. So Diana's going to set up, and we're going to show you the procedure that she goes through to ensure that she's in the perfect start position with the slack taken out of the bar. Starting off, of course, with her perfect stance. She's about an inch or the barbell over her midfoot, grabbing the barbell on the outside of her legs, giving her knees enough room to very slightly push outwards against the inside of her locked elbows. The way that we like to take the slack out of the bar is by listening to the click sound. She's going to do this by reaching the crown of her head to the ceiling and pulling her armpits towards her pelvis. That's creating full body tension through her body, but also tension through the bar, which takes the slack out of the bar. Crown of the head to the ceiling, armpits to the pelvis, and push the world away. No noise when that bar came off the ground. One more rep. Thumb down, knees out, shoulder blades down, head to ceiling. And that's perfect deadlift. So that was quite strong. 80 kilograms for Diana. I know that's quite easy for her, so we are going to go up. We've got 90 kilograms on the bar, but before Vinny picks it up, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my favorite cue of pulling the armpits towards the pelvis and why it's my favorite cue. The muscle that we're activating by using that cue of pulling the armpits to the pelvis is the lats. And let's talk a little bit about where the lats attach. As we know, a lat's an upper body muscle that we use for things like chin-ups and lat pull-downs, but let's think about their role in a deadlift. One of the main functions at the shoulder joint is a thing called shoulder joint extension. And that's something that I haven't spoken a lot about, but it is something that Diana is actively doing throughout the entire movement, is pulling the barbell towards her body. The reason why we can't see it happening is because the barbell is pressed against her thighs. And it is a very important cue to keep the bar in contact with your body throughout the entire movement. As soon as the bar drifts away from your body, a few things happen. It's now away from your center of gravity, making that movement a lot harder than it has to be. And it also increases the risk of injury. For two reasons. One, it's heavier than it should be. And two, the fact that it's drifted away from your body tells me that your lats aren't on. Now, why else do I want your lats on? They are one of the best protectors of the spine because they cover the longest area of the spine of all of your core muscles. Let's have a look now. The attachment point of the lats is at the front of the humerus on the inner lip of the bicipital groove. Coming underneath your arm, your lat attaches down through a thing here called thoracolumbar fascia, and then it attaches to the top of the pelvis. So the lat essentially attaches the front of your shoulder to the top of your pelvis. So it covers the longest distance of your spine of all of the core muscles that you have. Now the idea of pulling your armpits to your pelvis does a number of things. One, it lengthens the arms, which is an advantage for deadlifting. The longer the arms, the less range of motion we need to travel. But also by activating the lats in the movement, is going to protect our spine because, as we know now, that muscle covers a very long distance of the spine, which actually helps us in maintaining a neutral spine throughout the entire movement. If you've noticed, I haven't once told Diana to use a neutral spine. Of course I want her to use a neutral spine when we do the movement, but it's just one of those cues that I don't have to use when I tell her to pull her armpits towards her pelvis. It's just something that naturally happens. Okay, now, putting the belt on, we'll do one rep on 90 kilograms, following all of those cues. Walking up to the bar in her comfortable stance, with her shins roughly an inch away from that barbell, or the barbell is over her midfoot. Grabbing the bar on the outside of her legs, giving her knees enough room to gently push outwards against the inside of her locked elbows. Bum down, armpits to the pelvis, crown of the head to the ceiling, push the world away. Knees locked out, hips pushed through. Now we have 100 kilograms on the bar. This is going to be the last set from Dinny. We're going to do all of the same cues. Dinny's going to walk up to the bar in her comfortable conventional stance, grabbing the bar on the outside of her legs, sitting into position, reaching the crown of her head to the ceiling. Bum down, knees out, armpits to pelvis, knees locked out, hips pushed through. Nice, Dinny G. Okay, that was a little bit of aggression from Dinny, which I like to see from time to time. We saw a little bit of a change of attitude as she approached it, but I didn't know that was going to happen. I think I asked for 2, and she gave us 3. All right, not bad, not bad. And I guess we could say that a deadlift is one of those aggression exercises where mindset actually helps you quite a lot for an exercise like this. But that was great deadlifting. The technique slowed down very slightly on the 3rd rep, but there was no breakdown in form. 100 kilograms for 3 reps was not her max, but it was definitely challenging, and I'm very comfortable for Dinny to be working on a weight like that for a challenging session for her. So that is a conventional deadlift. Well done, Dinny.